and welcome to our Crafternoon. So today, if you saw my intro video, you'll know that we're creating watercolour backgrounds. So here are a few examples, and I will just go through again the materials that you'll need for this, and ones that are required, and then others that would be great to have, but not to worry if you don't have. Okay, so there are a few examples. So what we'll need is, of course, we're doing watercolours today, so we'll need a tin of watercolours. We'll also need preferably quite a thick or medium-sized paintbrush. I've got a rounded end one, that works well for this. If you have a thin paintbrush, that's fantastic, but not to worry if you don't. You'll need a pot of water, or two is even better. You'll need some watercolour paper, some masking tape, and then you'll want some cling film, cotton buds, and some salt are the optional materials. So this is like the coarse salt. This is not the type that you'd put on your chips. This is the really chunky stuff. Okay. So you can get that from a supermarket if you don't have it, and try it out another time. Also a napkin or something similar. I've just got a black biro, and then I'm working on a surface which I don't mind getting messy. I'm also wearing clothes that if they get paint on, I'm okay with that. If you've got, say, a plastic sheet down or something similar, we'll be you might want a piece of scrap paper, and I'll show you why later. It's just so it doesn't rip your plastic cloth. And also, we will want a hairdryer. So if you have a hairdryer, then go and grab that. We won't be drying our hair today. It'll be used to dry the picture. It just means that we have less waiting time in between our projects. So if we start off, I'm going to be showing you first how to create this kind of watercolour background here. Okay. And what I'll do actually is I'll get a little stand, and that way you can see it up close. So I've used a whole mixture of colours in here. It might be that you have some favourite colours that you'd like to use. There we go, try not to get the reflection on that. Okay. I will take a photo of this one as well and post it in the comments section after, so that you can see it properly. Okay. So start off with your piece of watercolour, and you'll see on here there's a white strip all the way around the edge. And to get that, we're going to need our masking tape. So I'm laying just a scrap piece of paper on my table, and then popping my watercolour paper over the top. You'll see why now, because I'm going to peel some of this masking tape. I want just enough to cover each of the edges here. So about that much. Now if you have, at the moment it might be really, really sticky. So if you can put it onto your, I'm putting it onto my leg, onto clothes on my leg, and then peeling it off. I'll show you here so you can see I'm popping the masking tape on myself and then peeling it off. This gets rid of some of the stickiness, because we're not wanting it to peel loads of the paper off and rip the paper. Alternatively, if you have, I've got a scarf down here, so you can just stick it to any piece of clothing and then rip it off. Jeans are particularly good for this. So once I've done this a few times, I'm going to lay it down, and all I'm doing, if I hold it up, is I'll be sticking it across. I'm choosing to do it about halfway. You can see half is on the masking paper and half is not. So I'm going to do this same border all the way round. So I can actually stick it to here now. So I need a longer piece for this side. If you're finding it hard to rip the masking tape, you can just get some scissors and use that instead. So again, got my scarf. And just getting some of that stickiness off. We want it to still be a little bit sticky because the reason we're putting this masking tape on is because we're not wanting the paint to run underneath the gap. We're wanting a nice, neat white line. So stick this on half and half, line it up, making sure it's straight. Or you might not want it straight, you might want it all wonky. Whenever I run workshops, the priority for me is that people enjoy experimenting, having fun. If the end result is not something that you'd like exactly, well, we can always have another go. But if you've had fun, that is my main aim. That's what art is all about, is experimenting and having fun. So I'm just sticking it down to my scarf at the moment, laying it all the way around the edge. If you have any questions at all, as always, do just post them on, or even if it's just to say hi, it'll be lovely to know you're here joining us today. If I don't see your comment for any reason, I always have a look at them afterwards anyway, so yeah, if you have a comment or have a question, then do let me know. So, there we go. I'm going to stick this down like this. If I lift this up, now my watercolour paper is stuck to my scrap piece of paper. You could stick it to the table if your table won't be ruined from it, but I knew that I've tried it before on this plastic mat and it actually rips it, so that's why we've got this. Now the technique that we'll be using today is wet on wet technique, so that means you want your paper wet as well as your watercolours. Another one that you can do is wet on dry, so obviously you've got your wet watercolours and dry paper, which we've done before. At this time we're going to make our paper all wet. So I've got my little pot with some water in, and I'm using my thick paintbrush for this because I'm wanting to put lots of water on now. So soak up some water, and then I'm just going to cover my sheet in this water. Make sure you have stuck your edges on nice and firmly, otherwise the water will seep underneath and then so will the paint. Sometimes it does and you can't do anything about it, but that's how to prevent it, is trying to just make sure it's stuck really well. Cover this. Okay, so I'm literally just painting with water. And now I'm going to use my colours. So for this one here, this example, I did a whole range of colours. It might be that you want this I kind of call this like a galaxy theme. It might be that you want to do a mixture of colours. It might be that you want to do ones more like the night sky, which is one that I've done here. Or you might just like to use your favourite colours. That's totally up to you. So for me, I think I'm going to do a night sky, so I'm going to do blacks and blues, dark blues, maybe a little bit of white in there. So I'm going to start with some blue. So with my watercolour palette, I'm really giving it a good mix. I don't just pop my paintbrush in and then do a little bit, because if you do that, then not much paint of the actual colour pigment will come off. So we're giving it a good mix, and then I'm going to start in the corner, like so. And it'll it'll blend when we put our next colour on. So I'm going to do this next, another type of blue. Because we have this wet background, it will blend. Now if like mine, because I've been talking, it's dried a little bit and it's not blending as much, just add some more water to your paper. That'll do the job. What I'm going to do now actually is I'm going to position the camera so that you can see this up close. Okay. Up here. Focus. Let's get that in focus. There we go. Okay. So I don't mind that I've gone over the edges here, and because the masking tape is covering it anyway. So I'm just going to add more and more colour, and you can see how it just disperses and blends in. Might introduce a little bit of black. Again, giving it a really good mix. If the colours aren't blending as well as you want, sometimes I just get a wet paintbrush and just don't even add any colour and just go in between the two colours that you want blended a little bit more. Okay? Bit of blue. Okay. Just blend these colours in a little bit. So at the moment they're quite pale. I'm wanting them a little bit darker than this. So I'm going to add some more of these blues over the top. See, that's a lot darker. That's the kind of colour that I would like. I might even add a little bit of red. Let's see what happens here. Probably make some kind of purple, which I think will be really nice actually. Oh, some kind of pink. Lovely. Blend that in a little bit. Let's have a think. A bit of that blue, I think. That's a nice dark one. Really, I'm just experimenting with the colours, and the lovely thing is, if you think actually I'm not so keen on it, or maybe you just like a section of it, then you could just keep it. Don't throw it. I wouldn't throw it away if I were you, because in next week's project we'll be cutting up little bits of paper and to make our picture, and it may be that you actually really like some sections of this that you've done. So yeah, if you don't like it, I would just save it for next week or another art project and see if it comes in handy. Okay, do you like that little pink highlight there? Right, I think I'm good with that. I think I might want to on the screen actually I can see the black looks a lot darker than it actually is from here, so Probably going to look really dark now, but yeah, I'm just going to make it how I want it to be. And seeing as it's a night sky, I'm just going to add a bit more black up here too. See, I'm using the side of my watercolour brush rather than the tip for this blending. Okay. So I finished with that. I'll pop the camera back up so you can see. There we go. Okay. That a bit clearer. Okay, lovely. So now we've done that, we can wait for it to just dry naturally. But it's nice if we can get on to the next thing. So I'm going to now use my hairdryer to dry this. So I'm going to move any little bits out the way that I think might get blown by my hairdryer. And if you do want to mute your computer now, if you don't like loud noises, then I would, because it's quite a powerful hairdryer. So I'm just going to dry it for maybe 10 seconds or so. Now, towards the edge of my masking paper, look at this, I can see there's a few puddles forming. So I'm just going to mop those up with my cloth. There we go, hair drying finished. And you might notice as well that sometimes the masking tape starts to peel off. I'm just going to stick that bit down because I'm wanting to do some of these, if you can see the speckles on this one, I'm wanting to do like the starry night. There's a few speckles on there you might be able to see. And for this, the white speckles I think look like stars. So I'm going to do a few of these. I'm going to want, so I've got my dirty paint pot and my clean one. I'm definitely going to want the clean one if I'm using my white. So adding plenty of water to the white. And you may like to do these speckles or you may not. That's totally up to you. Or you may like to do this one with, and then I'll show you another technique after. We don't need to do the speckles on that one. So all we do for these, you've probably done this before, you get a little bit messy and you just hold your paintbrush and then tap. It does go everywhere. So I'm just going to tap all over. If your paint underneath is still wet, and your white won't show up as well because it'll just blend in. So do make sure that the bottom layer is dry before doing this. Might want to concentrate on one area, or you might like to do it all over. Okay. Once I'm happy with that, I also would like to do a few lines, almost like in fact, if you saw there were some meteor showers last week, which were amazing, and so there were lots of shooting stars, which were lovely to see. And so I think I'm going to do a few shooting stars on here, so maybe just some lines across the sky on here. So I'm just going to, sometimes the white is really hard to see. If you do have a white pen, that's even better. I'm just going to do a few lines, especially if it's on black, then you can see it a little bit better. If it's on a light colour, if you've chosen a pale colour, then it's going to be quite difficult. Okay, so once I'm happy with that, it's at this point now that I would peel the masking tape off around here. So it may rip your watercolour paper a little bit because there is still some stickiness on there, but hopefully it won't rip it too much. I'm just going to go around the edges now. I find this bit so satisfying. It's really nice, just getting that nice crisp line. If some paint has soaked underneath, don't worry, it happens to all of us. Might have happened to me. Especially there was one particularly wet area which I think it's soaked under a tiny bit. There we go. Okay, so this is the galaxy sky. I had a lot of fun making that, I must say. And now you've got your background, this might be something that you would like to doodle on. If you were with us for last week's, was it last week's? No, it was the week before, the first workshop of this watercolour lot. If you were there, then you'll have seen we did some doodles. So it might be let this completely dry and you may like to doodle on top. If you do doodle on top of watercolour paper, I recommend using a biro rather than an ink pen, because the ink pen sometimes it spreads quite a lot, the ink pen. So if you've got a biro, this is actually the perfect thing to use. You may also like to do like patterns on there as well. Now you've done a really nice background, so feel free to doodle anything that you'd like on here, or just leave it as it is. Our next project, and we're going to be using cotton buds, cling film and salt. So if you don't have these in your house at the moment, then you might like to create some more of these, but I'm going to show you how we would use these materials now. So I'm going to need another piece of watercolour paper, and you can see how messy my space gets when I'm working. I'll just make sure to clear it all up at the end. Right, some masking tape. We're going to need our scrap piece of paper again, if you're not wanting to stick it down to the table. And then again, as before, we're going to want to remove some of the stickiness. So I get my scarf. And remove some of that. Like I said, if you have any questions at all, do feel free to comment. If I don't see them now, I'll get back to you later on it. Or if it's after this video, you can always contact me. I run an art studio in Sheffield called Flying Fish Studio, so you can look that up as well, and you can message me with any questions. So once that's done. So decide if you want a thin border or a thick border, or even, no, I'm going to show that later actually. I'm going to show how we can use our masking tape in really creative ways after this project. Again, on top of the scarf. If you don't have cotton buds, cling film or salt in your home at the moment, just so you know, after this, before our workshop for today draws to an end, which is still in like another 20 minutes, I am going to be going through a technique using masking tape. So if you want to continue with this project for now and then tune back in a little bit, then you can do that. Okay. So same as before, we're using the wet on wet technique, making sure that all of our edges are totally stuck down. Make sure you have a pot of clean water and covering your paper. I think I'm going to do a multicoloured one this time. I do really enjoy doing those. The great thing about the wet on wet technique is that it allows for colour blending. It just soaks into each other. Whereas wet on dry, it allows for more precise painting. So again, make sure you get a good mix of that so that you're it's not just water that you're putting onto your paper, it's a lot of the colour pigment too. That's lovely. Whole range of colours now. Oh, so I've mixed the red one side, blue the other, mixed them together in the middle and it's gone purple. I actually need a bit of green as well. So I'm not really sure what this is because I've never seen sky like this before. So there's more of a background, or it could be a fantasy world sky, one that you've dreamt of. Yellow. So I'm wanting a lot of this colour pigment on here. Especially for these techniques, it's really nice if you have quite dark colours. All of these techniques create kind of a texture on your artwork. I'm going over these colours again. Some green. Again, blending all the colours together. It's that blend that I really like about this technique. Rather than having blocks of colour, just blending it is really, really nice. In my opinion though, in your opinion, you might like blocks of colour. That's okay. You can definitely do blocks of colour if that's what you like. It's however you'll enjoy your time. Okay. Okay, lovely. So now I've finished, we do need to make sure that it is still wet, the areas that we want to use. So for the cotton buds, basically we're wanting to soak up some of the paint so that it leaves like a pale mark underneath. So all I'm doing is I'm getting my cotton bud and pressing it down on the paper, and what that's doing is it's absorbing some of the, I don't know if you can see, some of the watercolour paint and leaving a white a white circle on here. If I hold it up and see. At the moment, it still looks really messy with the edges because I've not peeled the paper off. So that's one technique, using the cotton buds and soaking up that water. Another technique which I really like is the cling film. So I'm just going to get a little bit of this. It is actually used, the cling film technique. If I take it out so there's not a reflection. On this one down here, just there, you can see it's got a little bit of texture. Hopefully you can see. Hopefully you'll be able to see in the picture after that I post, if not. But again, this, you need to do this when it's still quite wet. Just going to rip a bit of cling film off, scrunch it a little bit, and then press it down. I'm just going to do the blue section on my paper. Press it down onto your section here, and what that does is it creates just a really gorgeous. It removes some of the paint, but then leaves others, but in a really random way. So experiment with that, and that's probably my favourite technique actually. And then the other one is using this salt. And for this one, I'm actually going to add a bit more paint to this because it's not. I'm wanting a little bit darker than what it currently is. So you do need to make sure it's quite wet. We don't want it absolutely sopping wet when we use the salt, but it does need to be quite wet because this does a similar thing to the cotton bud, which is soaking up. It's soaking up some of that water, and then it leaves little faint blobs almost where it's been absorbed by the salt. So, at the moment, I've just done these 3 techniques very random. You might like to think about where you'd like a certain technique positioned, or it may be that you just want to go for one technique and one piece, and then one for another. But that's up to you. But then after that, I would then dry it, but just make sure that you've left the salt on for quite a while, until your watercolour has completely dried before drying it. So if you're using the salt, basically don't use the hairdryer, otherwise it's just all going to blow off. With the other one, with the cotton bud, you obviously can because it's removed the paint straight away. Hope that makes sense. Okay. You'll see if I start peeling this off, it looks so much different once you've got that really nice crisp edge on the top. Yeah, so don't be disheartened if at the moment it looks like a bit of a little bit of a mess, because once you peel it off, it really it'll hopefully be more like what you expect. So our next project, you might have seen in the little picture of what else we're going to be doing today, is this. So this is just a phrase that I really like. This is like my motto, I suppose. I'm going to put this up here, but it may be that you have a particular saying or something that you'd like to write on here. And for this, we're using a similar technique, but we're also going to want to leave some space to actually write your message here. So, another piece of watercolour. I'm now going to clear my area a little bit. I'm going to get some new water, because at the moment they're both quite murky. So just be one moment whilst I get this. There we go. Only takes a few seconds to get a new pot of water, and it stops it from getting all sorts of murky colours on your work. So another piece of watercolour paper. Again, I'm going to want my scrap paper. This one's already been in use, so I'm just going to get another one. Stick this down as before with my masking tape. So for this one, I think what I'm going to do is, you can see on all of these, they were quite straight edges. Now for this, I actually want some jaggedy edges. So what I'm going to do is, as before, I'm going to get a piece of clothing to take some of the stickiness off. And then instead of sticking it straight down on here, I'm actually going to tear it a little bit. So if you see this edge here, it's now all jaggedy. So I'm going to have this kind of effect going down. You can, don't really need this, it's quite a small piece, so I'm just going to do a bit more ripping. Then once I'm happy with that, I've got a jaggedy edge here, I'm then going to stick it down to my paper. I'm going to do that with the other ones too. If you do it right in half, you can even use both sides. So I'll try and do that now, so you can see what I mean. So I'm just tearing it down the middle. Quite tricky. Then I can use this side. Just about long enough. And then also this little bit as well. Might use that down there. So this is your own choice whether you'd like the straight ones or the jaggedy edges. It's just another technique that you can use. Okay, there we go. So that's my jaggedy edge one now. Same technique with regards to covering it, but before we do that, we're going to make sure that we've got a section which we're going to leave white. Okay, and to do this is when we use the masking tape. So it may be that you would like to do it landscape and do a word across there. It may be that you would like to do a word across there or a few words. I'm going to do a landscape one, and I'm going to do a strip of paper with my masking tape, should I say, across there. You can choose whether you want it to have jaggedy edges like it is at the moment, or whether you'd like to cut it straight, whether you'd like to cut maybe anything out of here, like you could cut like a zigzag if you want on here. Okay, so wherever you want your space to be, this is going to be the white area that you're putting on now. So I'm going to stick this down, and then I'm going to, really what I should have done with that is done the scarf, is popped the masking tape on my scarf again so that it wasn't so sticky. So I'm just hoping that it doesn't rip too much of the paper off. So there we go, that's my mistake. if I was to do it again, I would make sure to remove some of the stickiness first. Never mind. So I'm going to put lots of water on. And actually for this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, instead of doing it random areas of colour, I'm actually wanting to do a kind of a sunset. So I think I'm going to start with some yellows on the bottom, some oranges, maybe some purples and then some blues at the top. So start with the yellow. And do a sweep across here. Now because I want the colours to blend, I'm going to actually paint the yellow a little bit further up than what I would actually want, because then I'm going to blend some of the orange into that and make an orangey yellow. So here we have it so far. Might go for my mustardy yellow next. So I'm doing quite straight lines along here. Use my orange, mix it nice and well. So this is what it looks like so far. Build it up, next layer. I'm going to move the camera away so you can see it nice and up close. So I'm going over this masking tape. I don't mind that it's got colour on there because it's covering it, so it's going to stay white underneath. Then I might go for a little bit of this blue. Now I can tell, because it's not spreading as much, the paint, it is starting to dry underneath, so I'm actually going to put a little bit more water so that it does still spread. Remember, we're still using a wet on wet watercolour technique. And that red and blue together has blended into a purple very nicely. More red. Okay, so I'm happy with that. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to dry my piece. So again, do turn the sound off if you don't like this. I'm just going to dry my piece. And now I'm going to peel off these edges. So this is my jaggedy edge one. Another jaggedy edge. And then this section in the middle, making sure it's totally dry, and then going to peel this off. Okay, there we go. So I'll pop this camera back up here. Right, so now we've done that, it's deciding what you would like in your space. So, like I said, I've got on my Be Honest, Be Silly, Be Kind, because I really like that, and it's a good reminder to me, to all of us. I actually have these little cards with different quotes on, so yeah, I think I'm going to write this one. So it says, yeah, never miss an opportunity to give encouragement. It's a bit of a long one, but I like it. So I'm going to write this on now. Like I said, I would use biro, it's less likely to spread. So I'm going to write this on in the middle of my piece now. It might be that you would like to use this as a card, or you might like to write your name on it, or someone else's name. Could be beginning of a book that you're making. This could be the front cover. I don't know what you're up to. But I'm going to write this one for mine. Okay. So here's my finished piece. It may be that if you have any coloured card around the house as well, they look nice if you want to mount it onto anything like this. You can just use a little bit of glue under here, or maybe the red side, that's quite nice too. Okay, so there we go. That's all the techniques. If you have any questions at all, please do contact me at Flying Fish Studio, or you can comment on this post. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. We've got quite messy today, lots of different things going around. But yes, join us for our Crafternoon tomorrow. And until then, I hope you enjoy experimenting. Really lovely to see you, and bye-bye.